Hi there, Ron Blumer with Madison Fire Department. I'm a lieutenant here at station number 6. A lot of times at this time of year we do a lot of station tours, and we also do tours at the schools of our ladder truck. So today, with the Safer at Home Act, what we're going to do is we're going to bring the fire truck to your house, give the family, kids of all ages, some young, some old, anybody who likes to look at fire trucks, we're going to give you a tour of our fire truck so you can see what all the equipment that we have that we respond on calls with. Alright, so we're going to start this tour off by the place where I usually sit. So where I sit is right here, and this is the passenger side and the officer seat. So I got my gear ready to go, so if we have a fire call, we can actually go to a fire, put my gear on before we get in the truck, so this way I can put my seatbelt on. Now how do we get in this truck? The steers come down, and we can get in that way. So we go on multiple types of calls with ladder number 6. We go on fire calls, we go on medical calls, and we go on accidents. So if it's a fire call, we put our gear on. If it's a medical call, we have a lot of our medical equipment inside. With all the coronavirus stuff happening right now, what we do is we have some of our isolation gear that sometimes we show up in fire gear, sometimes we're going to show up in isolation gear. So we'll wear this stuff and also with a gown that we'll also put on. If we should go to a fire call, one thing we'll have is something that's called a thermal imaging camera. And with that camera, what we can do is in smoke, you just can't see. So what we use the camera to see people in smoke. It also lets us show where fire is at by looking at the heat, is what it does. So the camera is the place where we keep it right up here by the officer seat, and we use this to also help us out at the fire. The last thing we use to get to a fire is we have a computer here. This computer has a list of calls that we have that are actually happening as we speak, and also if we get assigned to a call, it's going to pop up on this computer, and it's going to have the address, it's going to have all the information that you'll be able to know so that the 911 center knows. All the information that you tell the 911 center, we'll have that same information here, so it helps us better prepared to help you for your emergency. So this is where our firefighters sit in the back of the fire truck. So there's a total of 4 people that ride on this fire truck. There's a driver, officer, and 2 firefighters. The firefighters ride in the back. So with the firefighters, they also have their gear, but they also have all the EMS equipment. You see a box in here right now. With the coronavirus, what we do is we have all of our isolation gear back here, and if we know we're responding to somebody who's sick, they can hand that gear off, so this we're prepared when we get to the call. We also have all of our EMS gear in a cabinet, which is right here on the side. So in this cabinet here, we have an EMS bag, it has oxygen in it. This way we can actually take that stuff inside with us when we show up at a call. The last part of gear that's set for this firefighter right here is we have a Sensit monitor. What that is for is you guys have fire alarms at your house or carbon monoxide detectors at your house. When those detectors go off, we need to find out, is there carbon monoxide in there? So when that right here is a monitor that we can actually use to actually look to see if there is carbon monoxide detector. So remember to change your batteries for your smoke detectors every time you change your clocks, and also change your carbon monoxide detectors, change those about the same time too for those batteries. So now we're going to start working through the rest of the fire truck. So when there's a fire in a house, how do we put the fire out? So we use fire hoses, and we also use water. So the fire hoses that we use to actually put the fire out, these are the hoses that usually we stretch inside a house, or whether it's a car fire or a house fire, we stretch these hoses inside the house to go inside to put that fire out. These 2 smaller lines, we use those to go put the fire out. And we also have a bigger line here for the fires that are bigger, that are even some of the buildings that are bigger. So we use those. So then we start getting into our pump panel. So this is just part of our pump panel, and the more complex part of the pump panel is on the other side. So we'll talk about that when we get over there. So here with this ladder truck, we go on a lot of accidents. So with ladder number 6 here, we do about 2,800 calls a year. So 2,800 calls a year. We're one of the busiest ladder trucks in the city of Madison. It's usually us, ladder 6, and ladder 2 are usually the busiest ladder trucks. And the reason we're the busiest ladder trucks is because we are a standalone ladder. What does standalone ladder mean? It means we don't have a fire engine right next to us. So when you look at this truck, you see it's got a big ladder on top. So that's what makes this a ladder truck. So some of the smaller trucks, the engines, they're the ones that do a lot of the firefighting, and they're the ones that they don't have that big ladder. Their job usually is to do the firefighting. And then what we do is ladder truck, this is like a big toolbox. And so as a big toolbox, when we show up at car accidents, we have the equipment to actually help somebody if they're trapped inside a car. So in this first compartment, what you're going to see is our extrication equipment. We should go to car accidents. If somebody's in a car accident and they have a hard time getting out and they can't open the doors, we have a lot of equipment in here that helps us open up those doors. So traditionally, there's a term called the jaws of life. So the jaws of life is actually what's written right on this tool. So actually, I'll turn it this way. It's actually written on here, it's the jaws of life. These are battery operated tools that we have with the City of Madison. What's special and really unique about these tools right here is that they have been donated by Firehouse Subs. So Firehouse Subs several years ago donated all the extrication equipment for ladder number 6. That's just down the street from us. So the way these work is we have an on-off button right there. You see this will open up. Now it pulls it back up. Different equipment we have in here. This is called our spreaders, which just spreads things apart. We also have something called the cutters, and that lets us cut the metal. So the last thing I'm going to show you in this compartment is our water can. So right here, our firefighters, when we show up at a fire, the lead senior firefighter carries a water can. Some things that we do is when we go into a fire, we look for people, we also look for fire. So if we show up at a fire as we're searching for where people are at, when we come across fire, we can use this water can to actually put that fire out. All right, the next few things you see, we have 4 little compartments right here. These compartments right here have air bottles. So when we go into a fire, what do we need to breathe? We need to breathe air. So when we're breathing that air from our original air packs that we have within our seats, we also need to change those air bottles out and give us more fresh air so we can actually go back into a fire. So that's what these compartments are our air bottles. Next thing we have, you ever wonder how we fight a fire in those big tall buildings? So we usually don't take the hose lines from the truck all the way up to the top of those big tall buildings. What we do, we have hoses that actually connect into different pipes that are actually inside that building. That's what this stuff is right here. So this stuff right here is our high-rise pack. So this what we can do is take those hoses up inside the building and actually connect them. A lot of times you'll see those little pipes in the stairwell. Another thing we have in this is cribbing. So like a car, if it's tilted on its side and we need to put some cribbing that's called wood underneath it to stabilize it so it doesn't rock or shake, we'll end up using those wood pieces for that. And the last thing we have is probably one of our things we use the most, and that is our oil dry. So if you get in a car accident, how does a car run? A car runs with gasoline. And if gasoline is leaking on the ground or oil is on the ground, it's kind of dangerous. So what we do is we use oil dry and try to soak all that stuff up. All right, we're going to go kind of fast through these next 2 compartments. So the first compartment we have lighting. So we have our lights in here. So if it's night, we go on calls during the daytime, we go on calls during the nighttime. So sometimes if we go into a fire inside of a building, we lose lights because we take the electricity out. So there's no lights that aren't working in there. So that's why we kind of use these lighting right here. Also, with fires, one thing if you have a fire, you get smoke. So how do we get this smoke out of the building? So we have 2 types of fans here. We have one fan here, that's powered by a gas motor, and then we have another fan here that actually gets plugged in. So this fan blows air into a building. This fan here pulls air out of the building. Now we are at the back of the ladder. So you notice something special about the back of the ladder. You notice a lot of visibility coloring. And the reason for that is we go to a lot of accidents on the highways. One of the things that's unique to our area, our territory, is we have the belt line. So on the belt line we have a lot of traffic and we want to make sure we're safe. This is the best way for us to be seen. We have 3 doors in the back of this ladder truck. So we have one door right here, which we have a hose line here that we can actually go fight fire with. And then we have a bigger hose line right here, and that's where we actually take water out of a fire hydrant with. So we pull this bigger hose line, and we use 5-inch hose here in Madison, Wisconsin. The last drawer we have here, this is a ladder truck, and we have a lot of ladders on this fire truck. So we have ladders that we can use on the roofs. We have ladders that will go up over the roof. There's a big aerials up on top. The ladder on top of this truck goes 105 feet. You can see all the different ladders we have. The last thing we have is a bunch of tools. So we have hooks here to actually pull drywall down and pull ceiling down. And the reason we want to do that is if we want to try to find out if there's fire inside the walls or inside the ceilings, our best way to do that is to go through that way. All right, now we're on the driver's side of this ladder truck. So one thing you also notice on the side of the fire trucks are these big things here. So what these are called outriggers. What they do is they end up going out and stabilizing the truck if we want to put that big ladder up in the air. So they come out and they go down. It's kind of like a crane, and it's basically what these things do is help stabilize the fire truck. We have two of them on each side, one here and one up there a little bit closer to the driver's side. On this compartment, this is our saw compartment. So we have a chainsaw and we have a circular saw back in here. It's called our K12 saw. And one thing that's really unique about that saw is this blade right here. It's actually diamonds are actually in this blade to actually give it a better cutting edge. So it's kind of a special, unique thing about this saw right here. All right, our next compartment's a nice small one. But one thing we have in here is we have tarps. So why do we have tarps in the fire truck? If there's a fire inside your house and you have a nice furniture, you have nice tables, you have nice couches, and we want to protect that because we don't want smoke to get onto it, we don't want any kind of material, any kind of burn. So what we'll do is we'll actually put covers over top of it to protect it, to try to protect the property that we have. So that's what we have here in this one, tarps, and also we have a cooler for some fluids for us to drink. Our next compartment, this is like a big toolbox. So this one is we have a bunch of different tools. So our senior firefighter, what they do is they always have the irons with them. So the irons is actually it's actually two tools. So they have a Halligan and an axe. So we get the axe right there. That's what our senior firefighter always takes. And we have a whole bunch of other tools in here to help us do our job. Our next compartment is called the engineer's compartment. So what's the engineer? The engineer is the person who drives this fire truck. So what they do is they drive us safely to a call, and what they do is they also run the pump panel, which is right there. Why is this the AE compartment? The engineer compartment is because it has all the tools and all the fittings that we need to attach to the hoses to help us put the fire out. They also have their fire gear in here ready to go. They have it in here because it's a lot safer and easier for them to drive with their normal clothes on. Once they get all this stuff on, it's a little bit harder to drive some of these bigger trucks with us. And just like that, we get a call. All right, we just got back from that call, and now what we're going to do is we're just going to talk really shortly about our pump panel. So for the people who know a little bit about the fire service out there, this is the 1,500 gallon per minute pump, and we have 300 gallons of water on here. So that 300 gallons for the kids is we use that water that's actually inside this truck. It's like a swimming pool inside the fire truck, and what we can do is we can pull water out of that swimming pool and go put the fire out. And quick, easy, there's a lot of knobs here. Who knows exactly how to run these things, but the nice and simple way to do it, water comes in, the bigger one here, and it always goes out one of these smaller ones. Each controller controls each individual discharge. All right, we're starting to close out this tour. So here is where our senior firefighter usually sits. It's right here, right behind the driver. One thing we'd like to throw a little plug into is our South Side football team, which that's over here. It's our youth football program on the south side of Madison here. And we have proudly carried their shield on our fire truck. So this is where the senior firefighter sits. And you'll notice right inside there, you see the air pack. It's called an SCBA. That's the air pack. That's what they wear in when they go inside those fires. We can put those on our way to the call. This way when we show up at a fire call, we're ready to go and can actually go inside. The last compartment we're going to show you is the driver's compartment. So here's the driver area. So this is the place where most of the kids love to go to the most. So what we have here is we have our steering wheel. So a lot of times the kids like to just get inside and look inside and turn the steering wheel a little bit. But since we're bringing it to you, let's let the camera zoom in a little bit closer and take a look inside the steering wheel. That was our tour of ladder number 6. So just remember, we would ask you to stay safer at home, and just remember that the firefighters will be here. We'll show up with our fire gear on if it's a fire. We'll show up with medical gear on if it's a medical call. And no matter what, we'll be prepared to help serve whatever needs you have. Thank you.